The highway was deserted, the only sound the monotonous hum of my car's engine as I navigated the dark, winding road. The clock on the dashboard glowed 11:57 p.m., and my eyelids grew heavy with each passing mile. I was desperate for a place to rest when the glow of a neon sign cut through the night's darkness like a beacon. Maple Grove Motel, it announced. Last stop for 100 miles. The choice was made out of sheer necessity. I pulled into the nearly empty parking lot of the motel, the neon flickering intermittently, casting eerie shadows. The lobby of the motel was dimly lit and smelled of mildew and old smoke. An elderly man with a gaunt face and wary eyes greeted me from behind a dusty counter. "Just passing through?" he rasped, his voice brittle like dry leaves. "Yes, just need a place to crash for the night," I replied, trying to keep the conversation brief. "Room 8, end of the corridor," he said, handing me a brass key that felt unusually cold in my palm. "It's quiet there. You'll find peace," he added, an odd, lingering smile on his face as he spoke. The room was a relic of the past, decorated with outdated floral wallpaper and a heavy, dark wood dresser. The bed squeaked under my weight as I sat down, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling creeping up my spine. Despite the heater's best efforts, a persistent draft chilled the room, and I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. As I settled into bed, a soft whisper broke the silence. My name floated through the air, a sigh that seemed to come from within the walls. "Come out," it beckoned, chilling me to the bone. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination, a byproduct of my exhaustion, but then it came again, louder, more desperate. Driven by a mixture of fear and intrigue, I left my room, the hallway stretching ominously before me. The carpet was threadbare and damp underfoot as I followed the whispers to room 5, where the door stood slightly open, inviting yet foreboding. Inside, darkness enveloped me, the kind of darkness so deep it felt tangible. My hand searched along the icy wall for a light switch but found nothing. Instead, my fingers traced over what felt like old, torn wallpaper. The air was heavy, laced with the scent of iron and mold, suffocating in its intensity. A sudden sob from the bathroom snapped my attention to the ajar door, where a sliver of light promised some visibility. Approaching cautiously, the mirror revealed itself through the dimness, fogged up despite the cold. Words appeared on the surface, scrawled as if by an unseen hand. "Help us leave." The temperature plummeted, my breath visible in the air as I stumbled back, heart pounding. Whispers swirled around, a cacophony of voices that seemed both distant and painfully close. "Free us!" they pleaded. Trapped and desperate, I searched the room for an exit, but found the layout inexplicably altered. Doors disappeared, replaced by walls that seemed to close in around me. It felt like hours before the room returned to its original form, the door reappearing as if it had never vanished. Exhausted and terrified, I fled back to my room, grabbing my belongings without a second glance. As I rushed out of the motel, the old man was nowhere to be seen, replaced by the morning clerk who seemed completely unaware of the motel's nocturnal anomalies. The drive away from Maple Grove was silent, the dawn light doing little to warm the cold fear that had settled in my bones. The whispers occasionally echoed in my ears, a grim reminder of the night's terror. I knew I would never stop at that lonely stretch of road again, and the whispers, though faint, seemed to follow me long into the daylight. We were never a family of means, so when Dad said we were going on a short vacation, I was surprised. A break was something we desperately needed, though, after months of scraping by. He found a deal online for a stay at an old motel on the outskirts of our town, the Willow Creek Inn. It promised peace and solitude, and for a price that didn't make Mom wince, it seemed perfect. The motel was a relic from another era, the kind you'd see in old road trip movies, with its neon sign flickering in a half-hearted attempt to welcome us. We checked into our room, which had 2 beds with musty quilts and a view of the deserted parking lot. The air was stale, and the carpet was speckled with stains of dubious origins. "It's just for a few nights," Mom reminded us, forcing a smile. The first night passed uneventfully, or so we thought. On the second night, things began to change. It started with my little brother, Jamie, who woke us all up around midnight, crying. He said he saw a shadow moving across the room, one that whispered his name. We thought it was just a nightmare, so Mom took him back to bed while I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the building settling. By the third night, I could no longer deny that something was off. I heard the whispers too, soft and sibilant, slipping through the cracks in the walls. They seemed to beckon me, calling me by name, urging me to join them. I pulled the blankets over my head, trying to shut them out, but they only grew louder. Determined to prove to myself that it was all in my head, I got out of bed to investigate. The room was cold, far colder than it should have been with the heater running. As I stepped closer to where Jamie had seen the shadow, the temperature dropped further, and I saw my breath fog up in the air. Then, I heard it. A child's laughter, echoing down the hallway outside our room. I crept to the door and peered out. The hallway was empty, but the laughter continued, bouncing off the walls, playful yet chilling. I followed the sound to the end of the corridor, where it led to a locked door marked storage. The laughter stopped abruptly as I approached, replaced by a low, mournful sobbing. I reached for the doorknob, hesitating as the cold metal seemed to burn against my skin. The sobbing grew louder, more desperate. With a deep breath, I turned the knob, but the door wouldn't budge. I returned to our room, unsettled and unsure. The next morning, I asked the motel owner about the storage room. He looked confused, then concerned. "We don't use that part of the building," he said slowly. "It's been sealed off for years after a fire. No one goes there." That night, the whispers returned with a vengeance. They were no longer just whispers, but cries. Pleas for help, for release. Jamie refused to sleep, and Mom admitted she'd heard them too. We decided to leave first thing in the morning. As dawn broke, we packed our things, the motel seemingly impatient to see us gone. The air felt heavier, the whispers now silent, as if holding their breath. We drove away, the Willow Creek Inn disappearing behind us. But the echoes of those forgotten voices lingered long after we had gone, a haunting reminder of the unseen and unheard. As the manager of Moonlight Motel, I thought I'd seen it all. But nothing prepared me for the night when silence descended like a cloak, suffocating every whisper of the desert wind. It started as an ordinary shift with Jake, our night clerk, reporting for duty. He was a good kid, always on time, never complained, even when dealing with the more troublesome guests. That evening, the air was heavier, tinged with a foreboding that clung to the dimly lit lobby. Jake checked in an elderly couple and a businessman before settling behind the desk, diving into a worn paperback. I retreated to my office, adjacent to the lobby, leaving the door slightly ajar to keep an eye on things. Hours ticked by. The clock's monotonous ticking was a soothing background noise until it stopped abruptly. I looked up, finding the silence unsettling. Stepping out, I saw Jake still in his chair, book face down on the desk. "Hey, Jake," I called, no response. Closer now, something was off. The way he sat, too still, too rigid. Reaching out, I shook his shoulder and he slumped forward, lifeless. Panic seized me as I checked for a pulse, finding none. The room spun and I stumbled back, crashing into a shelf. As I hit the floor, the air grew cold and a whisper crept along the walls, saying, "Leave us." Police arrived, their questions a blur as they cordoned off the area. They suggested a heart attack, but the chill lingering in the air spoke of darker things. After they left, I reviewed the security tapes. The footage showed Jake reading, then pausing, looking up at something off camera, fear etching his face before he returned to his book, moments later slumping over. The next few nights were restless. I heard whispers, saw shadows flitting through the halls. The motel guests complained of cold spots, of feeling watched. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever took Jake was still here. Maybe had always been. One night, drawn to the lobby, I found the air thick with the same oppressive silence from that night. The whispers were louder now, an urgent, hissing chant. "Join us," they said. I fled to my office, barricading the door until morning. Since then, I've never stayed past sunset at the Moonlight Motel. The day staff handles things now. Jake's chair remains empty, a silent testament to the night when the whispers claimed him. I warn everyone, don't listen to the walls, but it's only a matter of time before curiosity, or something else, draws them in.